Hey everyone, I'm going to get my slides queued up here. Okay, hi everyone, those watching live and those watching the recording. I'm so happy to be here with you today. So YouTube does have a chat feature. I'm seeing it on my right. I'm not sure where y'all will be seeing it, but please feel free to use that. I can answer questions throughout or at the end, whatever feels best for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started since this is recorded. If anybody pops in late, you can watch the recording. So if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Bird. I'm a certified sexuality educator and a sex and relationship coach. And today you're here for a workshop on intimacy and relationship hacks for a more passionate love life. So it's designed to help you transform everyday routines into moments of romance and connection, and it will offer practical tools and inspiration to reignite your spark. So again, please feel free to use the chat, but you don't have to. It is public, and it will be public with the recording. But if you do, I'd love to hear from you. You can introduce yourself and let me know if you're watching this solo or with your partners and where you're tuning in from. Okay, so here are some of the goals of today's workshop, reflecting on your relationship, to learning about what blocks intimacy, to how to spice things up in the bedroom. Plus, there are some freebies sprinkled throughout. So in case you can't stay until the end, and again, this is recorded, I'll be flashing a QR code and link on the next screen for you to get the freebies. But soon I'll talk a little bit more about how they work. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of a reflection. What's one of your favorite things about your partners or your love life? So again, a reminder, you can use the chat, but you don't have to. It is public, and I can see the chat. Other live viewers can see the chat, and it will be there with the recording. So why are we doing this, right? Appreciation and gratitude are shown to be evidence-based tools that strengthen romantic relationships, boost satisfaction and long-term commitment, while also acting as kind of a protective buffer against stress and conflict. And studies also show it increases relationship stability, fosters intimacy, and can even improve sexual satisfaction. So kind of all the things that we are here today talking about. So it's important. Okay, so we're going to start with talking about what blocks intimacy, and we're going to be touching on these things: fatigue, stress, routine, sex ruts, and loss of romance. But I will not be getting into all of the hundreds, probably more, reasons that intimacy, desire, and libido could be blocked. But many of the solutions that we're going to be talking about can help no matter what the reason is. So here are some of those other reasons that I will not be getting into. As you can see, it's very nuanced and layered. We have pressure and obligation, trauma, sexual shame, relationship dynamics, medications, mental and physical health, and much more. So this is complicated, right? And if you find yourself wanting professional help, reach out to me for a free 15-minute consult, and I will, we could talk about how I or another provider, if I'm not the right fit, can help. And as I mentioned earlier, the solutions that we're going to be talking about today can work for many of these reasons as well. Okay, so fatigue and stress are real barriers to intimacy, and in the times that we're in, who isn't experiencing these, right? So fatigue is more than sleepiness. It's an extreme tiredness, weakness, and an absence of energy. And it can come anywhere from burnout from work, a chronic illness, or hormones. And while sleepiness can and will also impact your sex life, it can be cured with restorative sleep, which in and of itself can be hard to get, right? When fatigue might not be cured by restorative sleep. So this can impact your love life by making it difficult to find the energy for sex, impact your mood, or make it challenging to find connective time in your energy budget. Stress shows up from a variety of causes you know about, right? Work, discrimination, major life events, the times we're in, and it can impact your sex life in all kinds of ways, including decreasing your desire and satisfaction. You can imagine, right, that when you're in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, it can feel impossible to sink into your pleasure. And even though sex or physically connecting, skin on skin contact is going to release those endorphins that make you feel good, which will reduce your stress, you first have to get calm enough to get there, right? And so, all this to say, the less stress you have, the better your sex life. So, let's talk about dealing with stress. So, like I said, many of us are under stress, especially right now. We often talk about stress like it's this individual problem. And a lot of what people are dealing with right now, especially, is not individual. We are and have been living through a lot. And so, if your libido and desire are lower, really it's your nervous system trying to do its job, even though sometimes we maybe don't want it to, right? It's hard though when stress is stopping you from accessing one thing that can help your body de stress or find a moment of comfort, which is pleasure, sex, connecting with your partner, right? So I really like this quote by Adrienne Marie Brown in her book, Pleasure Activism. There is no way to repress pleasure and expect liberation, satisfaction, or joy. So if with everything going on right now, you want to put sex on the back burner, full permission. But if you're here, you probably don't, right? So, and you might want to experience pleasure as an outlet or an act of resistance also. So let's talk about it. My goal for you isn't to be less stressed. That's not quite realistic, right? When stress is high, your body is prioritizing survival, not pleasure. That's why you can love your partner or partners or want sex in theory, but still feel zero desire. And for a lot of people, desire is responsive, meaning it shows up after you feel safe, connected, comfortable, or once arousal has already started. And so we're going to focus on creating those conditions. The goal is to help your body finish the stress response and find moments of safety, even small ones. I know the imagery here, but think of it like melting ice, a slow thaw into safety rather than a forced release. Anything forced or pressured is probably going to make stress worse, right? So think about just micro, small moments and downshifts. A few minutes of long exhale breathing, a hot shower, maybe with your partners, a weighted blanket, shaking out your hands, putting your feet on the floor, naming 5 things you see, stimming, whatever it is. Think about a few that you can intentionally add. Maybe even things that used to work and maybe you've kind of gone out routine of using them. We can't always lower our stress, but we can try to increase safety and give your body mind the conditions for a desire to arrive. Okay. Fatigue. So, firstly, small gestures can have a big impact. This can include quality time with your partners or yourself, even if it's a shared nap or laying together talking about your days. Also, at the end, I'll link a blog post with 50 low energy intimacy ideas. Next is planning. This could be especially helpful if you're dealing with something like burnout or a chronic illness. What times of day do you feel most energetic? Maybe it's before or after taking a medication, right in the morning when you wake up, maybe in the evening. Plan sex for those moments. You can also think about planning sex when you have pre and post rest. You're able to maybe take a nap before or rest for the weekend after. Next is getting real rest. So Dr. Dalton Smith came up with these 7 types of rest that we need: physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, sensory rest, creative rest, social rest, and spiritual rest. So when thinking about fatigue, it can be important to think about where, in which of these buckets it is that you're tired. Is it physically, emotionally, creatively, and so on? Moreover, what would give you more energy for sex and intimacy? Would it be napping after work so you have more physical and sensorial rest for sex or connection that evening? Could it be cutting down on something in one of these other buckets so you have more energy for sex? Now, obviously, fatigue is difficult to treat, especially when you have something like a chronic illness or burnout, but these are just a few strategies that you can add to your toolbox and hopefully help a tiny little percent in your fatigue. So, not surprisingly, researchers found that physical touch benefits our mental and physical health, particularly around sleep, heart rate, mood, blood pressure, mobility, anxiety, depression, fatigue, and pain for adults. So, it's important. So, since you're already here, I wanted to introduce a built in time to do a mindful touch exercise. Now, I can already hear some of you groaning and wincing because this might feel awkward, but try it. This is not only great for stress, as researchers have found, but it can be accessible when fatigued, as it can be done lying or sitting down. So I'm going to give you some time, which you can spend with yourself or partners, or come back to in the recording and do it with partners later on. So decide, do you want to do this with yourself or a partner? And pick a body part, like the hand, the arm, the calf, the face, with consent from your partners and also within your own boundaries. You're going to explore that area with your hand. What does it feel like? What's the temperature? Explore with different pressures. It's a mindfulness exercise, right? What thoughts and emotions arise in yourself? And if you're doing this with your partners, how about them? Keep open communication and presence with each other. If it feels awkward, which if you're not used to this, it probably will, that's okay. Embrace it. I promise it'll be over within a few minutes. And as always, you can stop at any time if it becomes too uncomfortable. So I will give you about 4 minutes for this. Okay, if you're doing this with a partner, it would be a good time to switch now. Okay, begin to wrap it up. So you can let me know in the chat or just reflect yourself. How was that? What thoughts and emotions came up for you and your partners? How did you, if you did it with a partner, how did you both communicate during it? Did anything come up in your body? You could also tell me if you hated it. I'd love to know that too. Okay. So back to what blocks intimacy. Routines and loss of romance is something that is especially common. I hear it all the time in longer term relationships. And you know the factors. It includes kids, work or school, a feeling of never ending tasks or to do list, or feeling like roommates instead of lovers. So, what do we do about it? The first tip is going to sound so basic, but it is truly amazing how many couple clients I see who just are not doing this or are not prioritizing it. Quality time, right? Now, this is not just being in the same space, it's intentional, usually phone or screen free time where you're giving each other your attention and actively listening. This can look like regular date nights, whether at home or out of the house, check ins at the end of the day. So, research shows that many relationship conversations are mundane logistics rather than connecting topics, which is fine, especially if you have kids and work and all of those things, which is fine, as long as you are also doing the deeper connecting conversations too. So if you or your partner struggle to connect, because maybe you haven't just done it in a while, maybe you're in a newer relationship, or maybe something like neurodivergence is a part of the picture, conversation card decks can be a great way to facilitate this time together. So in the top right, might be flipped for you, of the slideshow, that's the logo for this free Gottman conversation card deck app. And that could be a great way to see if card decks work for your relationship since it's free. But there are plenty of free and paid and physical and online card deck resources all over the internet. I have one on my website if you're interested. They are everywhere. Try it and see if it helps. So, next, non sexual touch increases intimacy, and even though it's non sexual, can help improve your sex life. So these are small habits that keep the love alive. Think about holding hands, hugging, cuddling, sharing a kiss goodbye before work. It's important that when you're touching each other in these ways, it doesn't always lead to sex. It's fine if it does sometimes, but not always. So these rituals of hugging or sharing a kiss goodbye before work are often the first thing to go when relationships become more logistical than loving. So reflect, how often do you and your partners actually touch? And when you touch like this, does it always or mostly lead to sex? Or do you also touch for connection's sake as well? Okay, break through your routines and ruts with novelty. So, again, in long term relationships, especially, but it can happen to anyone, novelty and mystery can counteract the all too familiar routines and repetitions that lead to desire decline. For example, when was the last time you took a class or a trip together, maybe spending time in a park in a different area of town? These don't have to be huge, but they can be. You can go skydiving if you want, right? Adding novelty in the bedroom is important as well, which we're going to discuss in just a little bit. So far, do any of these resonate with you? You can reflect on it or let me know in the chat if you would like. And we're going to spend some more time reflecting. So you can individually journal or reflect on these prompts. And again, feel free to journal in whatever way is most accessible or appealing to you. You can write on paper, type on a Word doc, use voice notes, do some art, reflect silently, whatever you want. And I have questions here that tailor both to those in relationships and those solo. So, what attributes or routines do you do in your relationship that makes, or in the past, has made it exciting, loving, or connecting? Or, if solo, what makes your relationships exciting, loving, and connecting in general? And then what routines or attributes might have dulled that excitement? Or if solo, what dulls your excitement in relationships in general? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to reflect or journal about that now. About 1 more minute. Thirty more seconds. Okay, so if you're not quite done, that's okay. You have a bit more time here if you'd like. So if you're here with your partners and you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and share what came up for you. Or, if alone, reflect by yourself. Even if you're partnered or not, that can be really important. So reflect on what it is that you wrote. What came up for you, any feelings in the body. And again, if you want to share any reflections with me or the group, the chat is there. And as a reminder, the chat is available to those live and will be available with the recording. So it's not private. So share whatever you feel comfortable if you do. You'll have a few minutes for this. It says 5 up there. I don't think I'm going to quite do 5. Okay, about 30 more seconds. Okay, begin to wrap up. And if you need more time for this, please keep talking, keep reflecting after the fact. Okay, so what blocks intimacy? We're moving on to a sex rut. You may have heard of this term, but a sex rut is a common, often temporary, keywords, common, often temporary phase usually in longer term relationships where intimacy feels routine, boring, or non-existent, or all of the above. So it can be caused by sameness or routine in your sex life, like constantly going through the same motions or sexual script when it comes to your sex life. Like we always cuddle, and then we kiss, and then we have intercourse in the same position every single time. And sex can begin to feel mundane, boring, and kind of just blah, right? So, moreover, a sex rut can come from or lead to little to no sex. And this can become a feedback loop as well. And if sex isn't pleasurable for one or more of you due to something like pain, a lack of communication, or incorrect technique, it might just make you feel less inclined to have it or make it an unenjoyable rut. It makes sense, right? Things like pain, lack of communication, and incorrect technique are important things to address because no one will crave sex that is painful or unenjoyable. Finally, a lack of emotional intimacy for those in relationships can make it difficult to be vulnerable during sex, talk about your needs and desires, or make sex connective. This can lead to unfulfilling sex or make it difficult to get into the mood. So, those tips that we talked about earlier, a lot of them were surrounding emotional intimacy. So, those are really important here for this. So let's take a break from my voice. I really like this metaphor that Ruth Ramsey, the speaker in the video, uses. So let's watch it. And if you have anything that you want to let me know in the live chat or in the comments after the fact, I'd love to hear it.
I'll explain what I mean with a comparison. Let's compare sex to tennis without the competitive element. So imagine you want to play better tennis more often with your partner. What would you do? You'd talk about tennis, both on and off the court. You'd get your diaries out and you'd plan when to play. You'd be keen to learn. Maybe you'd invest in lessons or watch free tutorials online or read about it. You'd be curious about techniques you hadn't tried. Maybe you'd experiment with specialist tennis clothing or high-tech accessories. One day, you'd want a long, intense match, and another, just a quick bit of sweaty fun. So you'd always check in. What do you fancy today? If you developed a physical pain which stopped you playing, you'd see a medical specialist, and you'd be keen to get back on the court. You'd agree the most important thing is that you both enjoy it, and you'd soon find you were playing better tennis more often. But that's how we approach a hobby. It's very different to how most people approach sex. Most of us never talk about sex, even with the people we're having it with. We certainly don't get our diaries out and plan when to do it. We just hope we'll spontaneously want it at the same time. We don't educate ourselves, and most of what we were taught when we were young was what can go wrong. If there is a physical problem, we're embarrassed. Often we don't see a doctor. We might not even tell our partner. We just make excuses to avoid the whole thing or grit our teeth and pretend that we're enjoying it. When we do have sex, we typically do the same acts in the same order as we've done for years. Imagine if we did that on the tennis court, how quickly we'd get bored. So it's no wonder we're not doing it or enjoying it as much as we'd like to. Let's start to approach sex like a hobby instead. Let's talk about it, especially with the people we're having it with.
Okay, what did you think of that? I think this reframe could be very helpful to those watching who feel nervous about implementing some of the solutions that we are talking about and will talk about. I also like that she mentioned treating injuries and pain, accessories, lessons, spicing things up, scheduling sex, and talking about it, just like if it were a hobby. It's hard though. We all have a lot of shame around this topic. Usually, most cultures do. Something to strive for. Okay, so sexual communication is an entire workshop within itself. Too much to get into here. If you would like that workshop, let me know. But I didn't want to leave you hanging. So here's a script or a template that can work pretty well when wanting something different or new. I feel about what I need. So this could sound like, I feel really excited about the workshop we attended with Bird and all that we learned. I want to try a new position or new foreplay. Can we talk about that? So as you keep listening, you can think about what you might use this formula for. And like I said, sexual communication is an entire workshop, too much to get into here, so I wanted to include a bonus freebie in case you felt like you needed more support around this. It's my communication ebook. It's full of evidence-based methods to improve your communication, and it's free. So try it and see where it gets you. I put the link in the live chat. It'll be in the description, and there is the QR code and the URL. Okay, so let's talk about the foundation to spicing things up in the bedroom. When having sex, remembering to slow down and include foreplay, also known as core play, because it's that important. Foreplay helps to create or build sexual arousal, increase blood flow, and increase physical and emotional intimacy, the things we're talking about, right? In fact, the Journal of Sex Research says that male and female identified folks have reported their orgasms were more pleasurable when there is a greater buildup of sexual arousal and desire beforehand. And this data probably translates to non male and female identified folks. We just don't have that data. So I also get this question a lot from my clients: how much foreplay is enough? Generally, foreplay has lasted long enough when all partners are fully aroused, as relaxed as you can be, and physically ready for more or different stimulation. I would say this is usually anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 minutes or more, but really communicate with the person that you're having sex with, and they'll let you know. I also do want to talk about what is foreplay, what are the different types of foreplay. So here are a few ideas. You might have tried some and not others. You might reflect on one or two that you want to implement next time. So massage is a pretty common one, but you could spice it up with a massage candle or lovely scented oils, skin exploration like that mindful touch exercise we did, or with something like a feather, your nails, your hands, kissing, going beyond the lips like the neck, the ears, the thighs, compliments, flirting, words of affirmation, dirty talk, sexting, making the environment feel romantic with candle lighting or fresh sheets, a bath or shower together or solo, watching porn together or solo or mutual masturbation, dancing, hugging, holding, cuddling, erotica, but most importantly, ask the person that you're having sex with about what feels good for them and you. Okay, so spicing things up in the bedroom is a huge topic. And now that we have the foundation of all the other things we've touched on in this workshop, we talked a little bit about some things that can spice up in the bedroom already. We talked about some things for emotional intimacy. We talked about foreplay, core play. We talked about sexual communication. So now that you have all those other foundations, you're ready to add some novelty. So a 2017 study showed that the sweet spot of novelty and sexual satisfaction was adding about 12 new things per year, so roughly one per month. Now, that was just a study. Everybody's different, so see what feels good for you. So I've broken these up into small steps, medium steps, and bigger steps. Obviously, someone's small step might be a big step for somebody else. This is just how I categorize them. So again, reflect on some things you might want to try, not necessarily about the categories. So some small steps might be changing the speed, trying new positions. Google has plenty. Adding in new or more foreplay, like we just talked about, or expanding the length of foreplay. Maybe you were doing 5 minutes before and you want to expand to 10, 20, 30. Having sex in a new location. Have you ever had sex in your laundry room? There's plenty of new locations you could try. Who initiates, how, and when. So think about new ways to initiate, how and when. I do have an initiation mini guide on my website if you need a little bit of help with that. New roles. Maybe someone usually gives. That person can receive. Trying different things. Compliments. Music. Changing the lighting. Incorporating different scents. Let's talk about some medium steps. Temperature. Bringing in an ice cube or a warm cloth or a warm shower or bath. Texture. Silk. Blankets. Feathers. Nails. Grinding. Exploring different areas of the body. Mutual masturbation, maybe only using your hands only, or your mouth, or a toy. Dirty talking. Some larger steps. trying a toy for the first time or trying a different toy, kink or BDSM for the first time, or something new that you haven't tried before, trying fantasies you've never engaged in, or even talking about your fantasies, writing or reading erotica together, watching or listening to porn together, or this one I put in a larger step because it's hard for a lot of people, asking for something new or for your sexual needs to be met. Now, like I said, the small, medium, and large steps is just how I categorized it. If that's not your categories, that's okay. Think about what feels doable and pleasurable for you. So, this was a lot of examples. I know. So, how do you decide what you or your partners want to try? That brings us to our second freebie. This is my yes, no, maybe list. So this is a menu of intimate or sexual acts, kind of like those steps were. You may have heard or done some of them and not others. The yes column is where you write down acts that you want to try. Maybe dirty talk you put in there. The maybe column is for acts that you might consider trying. Maybe like a hands-only night is something you would consider trying. And the no column is for acts that you feel uncomfortable performing or receiving. So you can also keep in mind when doing this list that acts can have rules and boundaries attached to them. For example, someone might say, yes, I'll try handcuffs, but I only want to try them if they're fluffy and not if they're metal. So you and your partners, or just yourself if you're solo, this is a great activity for getting to know yourself. We'll fill out your lists on your own and then compare and contrast them. And then you create together your own menu of things that you want to try. So all the no's are things you do not do. The maybes you could put together in a menu, and all your yeses you could put together in a menu. You might have felt overwhelmed when I said that statistic that trying about one new thing a month. This was really helpful for that. So the free download, I've already put the link in the chat, and I will throw up the QR code and the link again. And it's totally free. You just put your email in and it'll be put in your inbox. So I want to say that you are worth the effort to have the best sex life and relationship that you can. And by prioritizing it, your sex life, your intimacy, your partners, and by attending this workshop, you're already doing it. You're already on the way to spicing up your sex life and having closer relationships. I want to say that it might feel hard at first. This is a lot of newness and a lot of information, right? You might need to rewatch this a few times. And it's okay if it feels hard. You're building new neural pathways. It's supposed to feel hard, right? So if you feel confused about all of this, you don't know where to start, or you maybe just need some support for your specific situation, I did want to say that I am accepting new clients, and you can email me at that email right there, and we can have a free 15-minute consult. If you just have questions, we could answer them for 15 minutes. If you want to know how to use these freebies, we could talk about them for 15 minutes. Or if you're interested in working with me or another professional if I'm not the right fit, we could talk about that for 15 minutes. I also do want to be upfront about my pricing because that's important to me. So those are on the slideshow there, and I do have sliding scale options. So again, that's the email for any private questions as well. I know the chat and the comments are public. So if you have any private questions, you can email me as well. And we could do it over email or over a phone call. And I will read out that email. It's inclusive intimacy with Bird. Bird is spelled BYRD @gmail.com. Okay, so I have some time for questions. Again, email me if you don't want them in a more public setting. There's also my Instagram there, and that's where I am on most social medias at Inclusive Intimacy with Bird. Bird is spelled BYRD. My website is inclusiveintimacywithbird.com, BYRD. But you can use the chat for questions, or you can comment them down below if you're watching this after the fact. And then here is all the resources that we've talked about. So that first URL there is that 50 options for low energy intimacy. That second link is all the freebies we've talked about. That's the QR code as well. If you're interested in my products, I talked about the conversation card deck and the initiation menu. That's there. And then that's my email if you have any questions. So, again, thank you so much for being here. I was so glad to spend these 45 minutes with you. Any questions can go in the comments or my email, or you can find me on social media, wherever is easiest for you. But thank you so much for being here today. I had a great time, and I hope you did too. Bye bye.